So, with that being said, uh, let's talk about a player. A player? Yeah, a player. You know, a lot of people have forgotten that we acquired David Onyemata. And you might be saying to yourself, who cares about David Onyemata? But David Onyemata, which is a defensive tackle on our team that we did sign, is actually a very key player. I think he's going to be our starting nose tackle. And so you may wonder to yourself, well, how good is he? Can we look at the data to find out? So what we're going to do, we're going to take a look at David Onyemata. You see some of his data right here. So we're going to do data analytics today, but then Friday we'll take a film study look at David Onyemata and look at the film and see him on the football field. But first, we'll take a look at these numbers. And then tomorrow on the Substack, all the Substack subscribers will be getting an article about David Onyemata. Where did he come from? What's his origins? Does he have an interesting backstory? Well, if you are a subscriber to Chemtrails, Frankie from Flatbush.substack.com, you would know tomorrow morning because it would come right into your inbox. But as of right now, we picked up some data points. Now, he's a defensive tackle, so this is not going to be, chock full of interesting data points. When I start doing some offensive players, it's going to be a lot, we'll have a lot more to work with. For these defensive players that typically don't rack up a lot of stats, especially defensive tackles, they typically don't get a lot of sacks or even really tackles for that matter. What we took is the PFF overall score over here and then said, well, where does that rank for interior D linemen? And then what was their run grade and where does that rank? And their pass grade and where does that rank? And then their missed tackle percentage. And where does that rank? And then how many run stops do they have? Because he's primarily a run stuffer. And where does that rank over the last 5 years so that we can get a good idea of what we're getting in this David Onyemata fella? And what we can see here, if we just look at the ranks, you can see how he performed. If you look at the PFF overall rank here, a couple of times, 3 times he's been in the top 10 for defensive interior. And then he has these 2 outlier years out here, 2022 and 2024. And it's basically similar. And then if you look at the run defensive rank, 10-5-9. So he's been a top 5 run defender as recently as 2023. So that's exciting. But he's been in the top 10 again 3 times in the last 5 years, and then 2 other years not so good. But what about his pass defense? Well, he's not so great there. He's basically a run stuffer, as you can see, 48, 88, 27, 31. He's not terrible. He was top 15 once. So he's not, exactly Dexter Lawrence over here. Missed tackle rank, getting better every year. If you look at it, he was 83rd in 2021, 58th in 2022, 30th in 2023. Then he was top 25 in 2024, and then he was top 11 in 2025. So in terms of missed tackles, he's getting better every year. And then as far as run stops, again, he had this outlier year, 85th in 2021, but then 38th, 32nd, 51st, and then 12th. So he did have a really nice year last year. And, you may be saying, well, how is he getting better? Because he's also kind of on the older side. I mean, he's 33 years old. I mean, why is it, for example, his missed tackles are getting better and better and better every single year? 83rd, 58th, 30th, 23rd, 11th. Well, as those people who are subscribed to the Frankie Substack will learn tomorrow, he's a guy who was late to football. He's originally from Nigeria, And then he went to school, high school, and then college in Canada. And that's where the NFL found him. But he was not one of these kids who's been playing football his whole life. And so, American football, anyways. And so, that being the case, I think he's probably a little bit of a late bloomer. And, you pair this guy with Carl Dunbar. Can we get more top 10 out of him? Can he be a consistent top 10 guy? PFF overall top 10 defensive interior player. In defensive rank, it's probably not realistic to think he's going to rank too highly against the pass. But missed tackles, this could certainly improve. And so that would be good. We need people who are not going to miss tackles, and we need people who are going to have a lot of run stops. We didn't have many of those last year. And so that's what we're really looking for out of Mr. Onyemata. And when you pair him, with, let's say he's our starter, Tavondre Sweat is his backup, and they're both going to get a lot of playing time because, they'll probably split it up 50-50. And then to the left and right is going to be Harrison Phillips and Jawan Briggs. And then we need one or two more. We still have Mozzie Smith on the roster, but we need to get at least one DT in the draft and then probably sign one after the draft. But if you think about the three in the middle that are going to be two-gapping, it's going to be probably a lot of the time it's going to be Onyemata and Phillips and Briggs. And that's a pretty good trio, especially against the run. So that is very exciting. That is very exciting. So there you go. Some data analytics on a Wednesday.